But we have Eric with us in spirit.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay, today, February 25th, 2024, it's our 42nd meeting, reading Urantia book with Heidi. We are going to finish up paper 111 today, and we are going to reading section 7, the adjuster's problem. 第42次会议与海地读语书，我们要完成第111篇，调整者与灵魂这一篇，我们读最后一个部分，调整者的问题。看如果有时间，也许可以开始第112篇读一点。Okay, Heidi, I already.
Yeah, hello everyone. Like Ricky said, we're finishing the thought adjuster papers. Very exciting, and we're reading the last section in the thought adjuster papers, the adjuster's problem, number 7. And I just want to say that I went to Goodreads this week. It's all about books. It's a great place, and I hadn't been there for about 7 years or a long time, and I see that I had written a review of the Urantia book a long time ago, a long review, and then some people commented on the book, and one person said, the Urantia book is so difficult, no one can understand it. Not one person, and you're not supposed to. But they loved the book, but they said future people or something. And I said, and I had written back. I saw what I had written, and I had written, well, no, there are some, you have to just start with book number 4, part 4, the Jesus Papers, and then you can read about Adam and Eve and your angels, and there's whole sections that are easy to understand. It's not all difficult. And I listed the thought adjusters as one of the easy papers, but now that we've just read it, it wasn't so easy. Adjusters, I would not call one of the easy papers, but I would call one of the most interesting for sure.
他就说他这几天呢，就是上一个网站，大概叫什么 Goodreads， 就是一个网站呢，大家可以在那儿分享读书心得的，尤其那有一些就是看到，就是关于《月下之书》，很多的人在那里发表这个对这本书的那个看法意见。那么很多人承认这个是很好的一本书，但是非常的难，很难读懂。有可能真的是给这个将来的这些的时代的人读的，反正很少有人读得懂。但是他们虽然读不太懂，但是觉得非常好的一本书。大概他有写评论回去，就是大概会提出来一些的，你可以先读一些比较容易的章节啊，读亚当夏娃呀，读关于天使啊，他认为思想调整者呢是比较容易读的部分，但是他现在读来也觉得也没有那么容易。对，但是就是相对其他的那个语书的章节，他认为就是思想调整者的部分是比较容易的，虽然没有那么有趣。
The other thing is, for many people who think that this book is extremely difficult to understand, I think most of those people started at the beginning, because the first sections are the hardest to understand in the whole book.
那有一些人觉得特别难，觉得这本书的人，恐怕他们往往都是从第一部分开始读，第一部分是最难的。
So that's why I always recommend not starting at the beginning of the book unless they really want to.
所以我一般都是建议不要从第一部分开始读，除非他们特别就是想这样做。
And then, I've talked about this to Ricky many times, but I should mention because there are so many people out there who do think the book is too difficult to understand and too difficult to read. And, I want to say that now that I'm explaining it as I read it to our group, it's not as difficult as I thought. It's partly because I've read it for, more than 50 years. That helps. I'll pause and let you translate.
对，现在我们在读，就是一边读一边解释，就是发现其实也没有那么难。也许那是因为我已经读过了50年的缘故。
But partly because I've worked as a technical writer for 25 years, and that means that I'm trained to analyze very complex information and put it in plain, understandable English.
对，另外一个原因可能因为我已经做了25年的技术写手，就是已经被训练的，就是分析这个语言呢，然后分析复杂的句子，然后把它用比较平实的语言来表达出来。
But as anyone who's been listening, and as Shenli and Ricky, the way I do it is if it's a long sentence, I just take each section, the first section, and I think about what that means in the second section, and I think about that in the third section, and that's how I do it. I take it section by section in these long sentences, and that's how I'm able to translate it not into Chinese. Ricky does that, but to translate it into more understandable English when it's really tricky.
对，我会把一个长的句子哈，一段一段的那个分开讲解，每一段它是什么意思啊？这样呢，就是那个再串联起来，这样就是比较能够好理解。
So many of the sentences that seem like ridiculous, like, oh my God, I don't know what they're talking about here. When you take them apart section by section, they're not hard to understand when you take them up section by section.
对，那一就是很长的句子，非常难读懂的，但是你如果把它给切成一段一段的，你会发现也没有那么难了。
And of course, like anything, the more you read the book, the easier it is to understand, because they make many things that they talk about, they've talked about in many other places in the book, and you're familiar. You know what they mean when they say that. You know what they're talking about because you've read it so many times.
并且你越读的多呢，它很多的概念呢，就是在这个地方出现，其他的地方也会出现，这样有一个呼应的关系。所以那个你在这个地方读完，你就会想起哦，以前我在哪个地方也读到，这样也有利于就是说更觉得它不那么难了。
When I was reading it by myself through all the years, whenever I would read it, many times I would just get to a sentence and then have to read it 4 times before I understood it, just over and over, and think about it before I understood it.
那在我读这本书的那些年当中，有的时候有一些难的句子要读4遍，才大概知道他在讲什么。
So if you're reading alone, just take your time, go slow, read sentences over and over if they're tricky, and take them apart section by section, if you understand the first part of the sentence, then the second part of the sentence, then the third, and then you put it all together.
当你自己单独读的时候呢，可以慢慢的读啊，遇到比较难懂的地方呢，你就把它给这个分解开，一部分一部分的来啃，就是蚂蚁啃骨头一样，慢慢的啃。对。
And then, last thing I'll say on the subject is, then remember that many of the things they're talking about are things you've never thought about, things you've never heard of. So of course it's hard to understand. You have to open your mind to the idea that they're telling you something that you've never heard before, that you can't possibly it can't be easy for you to understand a concept that is completely new to you.
还有我们要就是记着，这是他往往介绍的一些的概念哈，我们以前没有听过的，所以要开放我们的头脑。对，那个就是难理解是在预料当中的。
But I can assure anyone listening to this who thinks the book is impossible to understand that if you listen to our sessions, you'll see that you definitely, I mean, Ricky, you agree, it's definitely understandable.
对，那个听这个录音的伙伴们，就是你们就是也慢慢会意识到，就是虽然一开始你有可能就是被吓到，认为不可能读懂了，但是呢，听了这个我们一起读呢，慢慢一点一点的啃呢，其实你就会发现还是可以理解的。
And I also can remind people that I started reading when I was 16 and I understood it then, and I read the whole book eventually, but I just started reading sections that interested me, and I pretty much understood everything I was reading, and I was only 16. So if I could understand it then I think a lot of people have to just give it a little more of a chance.
对，那你想，我是16岁的时候开始读，当然我是挑我感兴趣的部分啊，当然最终我是把整本书都串起来读完了。那么，但是你想啊，我16岁的时候读的时候，我也没觉得它很难懂啊。如果我16岁就能读懂，那么你就要给自己更多的机会来，就是你也会读懂的。
And anyway, if you find it very difficult, just listen to our recordings because we're explaining it sentence by sentence.
对，如果你感觉到很难的这本书很难，你就听我们的录音，因为我们都是一句一句的读的。
Okay, now section 7, the adjuster's problem.
Mm.
And I'll read probably a few paragraphs. We'll see. Uncertainty with security is the essence of the paradise adventure. Uncertainty with security is interesting, is the essence of the paradise adventure. Uncertainty in time and in mind, uncertainty as to the events of the unfolding paradise ascent. Oh, security in spirit and in eternity. Security in the unqualified trust of the creature Son, in compassion and infinite love of the universal Father. Uncertainty as an inexperienced citizen of the universe. Security as an ascending sun in the universe mansions of an all-powerful, all-wise, and all-loving Father. Well, you can do that paragraph. You can translate that. Shenley, are you reading?
Yeah, I'm going to read. 安全中的不确定性是天堂冒险的精髓，时间和心智的不确定性，对天堂扬升过程中事件的不确定性， 在灵性和永恒中的安全感，受造之子对万有之父的神性慈悲和无限慈爱的无条件信任所带来的安全感。作为宇宙的无经验公民的不确定性，作为全能、全知、全爱之父的宇宙宅下中扬升之子的安全感。OK，
So thanks. So they're talking about the universe, our whole universe adventure, our whole eternal life adventure, starting in this life. What they're saying applies to this life and the next lives, but they're really talking. They're talking about the whole adventure, but they're talking mostly about the beginning. You know, the beginning, because they say uncertainty in the last sentence, they say uncertainty as an inexperienced citizen of the universe. So they're not talking, they're not talking about after we're finaliters so much as when we're young ascenders. But I think it also applies through the entire ascension career.
这个天堂扬升之旅呢，它现在主要是就说是我们刚开始，因为现在我们在地球上这个肉身生命就是刚开始的天堂扬升之旅，所以就是有这个不确定性。
So they're saying uncertainty with security is the essence of the paradise adventure. So they're saying, get used to it. It's like this is the natural, the divine way of, this is how it's supposed to be. We're going to be experiencing this uncertainty for a long time. That's not just in this life. They're saying we'll still be uncertain because we'll be uncertain as to the events unfolding, as to what's going to happen next. You never know that. We'll be, I'm looking for the uncertain as to because we're inexperienced citizens. So you never know what's going to happen next. There's always it's like the yin and the yang, the duality of the universe, the good and evil, love and hate, dark and light, night and day, uncertainty and security. That's the balance. And when you're feeling too insecure, you can remember how secure you are in God's love. And when you're feeling, too secure, maybe you can remember that you really, there's still a lot of unknowns out there.
对，那个第一句，这个是安全中的不确定性，是天堂冒险的精髓。就是说它这个是冒险的这个本质就是这样子的就是在不确定当中的一种确定感，这个是就是本来就是这个样子的。神圣冒险旅程的本来的样子就是这样。这很长时间了，因为我们还没有达到终局者团队之前，是很长一段时间都在过程当中的这个正在进行的，肯定就是有这个不确定性在里头。那个我们都是没有那么宇宙那个缺乏经验的公民，正在积攒经验嘛。就像那个阴和阳总是相对存在的一样，善恶呀、光明黑暗啊、不确定性和安全感啊，这个都是同时存在的。就是我们在不确定感当中，要总是能够想起来神的爱是我们一直是确实存在的保障。
So this isn't in the book, this is me talking. The humans, mortals, humans, earthlings, Urantians, we have a strong desire to resist uncertainty. We want to know what's going to happen next. Where am I going? What's going to happen there? What is it like? We go to fortune tellers. We ask questions. We're not comfortable with uncertainty. Many of us. It's a very natural, I guess, to be afraid of the unknown, right? It comes from maybe our primitive being. We were primitive creatures for a long millions of, a million years. Most of that time we were, Andon and Fanta appeared about 1 million years ago. But most of the time we've been people, we've been very primitive creatures. And all in that time, I mean, imagine how fearful it must have been just to be alive, not to know, your first thunderstorm, your first snow. I mean, everything must have been so frightening because you didn't know what was going to happen next. You'd see an animal you'd never seen before, So we got that fear embedded in us of the unknown. And what they're telling us in this paragraph is, no, that's the way the universe is. That's how it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be uncertainty, but it's okay because it's balanced with a very deep security of God's love balances it out.
Yeah. 对，我们凡人呢，就是总是渴望那个稳定啊，拒绝就是不稳定，就对不稳定、不确定有一种抗拒心理。我们总是要去那种算命的，去想要发现将要发生什么，比较的对确定性有安全感，比较舒适啊，自然的就是恐惧那个未知的事物，因为我们从生物来源来讲是来自于比较原始的造物。那安东方达那个年代，那么就是猿人那个年代，可以想象，就是能活着就是很幸运的事，就是很多的自然的威胁啊，其他的动物的威胁，那么所以这个恐惧是相当于就是深植在我们之内的，就是很自然的。但是呢，同时我们要意识到，就是什么来平衡呢？就是我们也要有更深层次的这种安全感、确定性，是来平衡我们这个恐惧的。
And, we're so lucky to be alive. This is me talking. This isn't in the book. We're so lucky to be alive in this era because we know we have the assurance of God's love and God's and the reality of God and Jesus. We've seen the example of Jesus living his life here. We can feel more secure than any people before us because we know that we're safe, that we're protected. We know about angels. We know there's celestial beings on this planet. We know everything's under control. No one before us ever had this kind of assurance that we can have now, especially if we went readers of the Urantia book.
对，我现在我在说话，那么在这个年代，那个能够活着就很不容易了，但是现在呢，我们就是很幸运，就是能够确信神的爱和耶稣来给我们做了一个榜样，进一步就是我们这个安全感呢，比在他来之前的人都要大的多。我们知道有天使啊，还有灵界存有啊，我们的就是整个的都是形式都是在可控范围内的，就是被掌控的。所以呢，在这之前的人大概没有我们这样的一种安全感，一种保障。
So it can be very scary. Uncertainty can be very frightening. Not knowing, if you're in a difficult situation, you don't know for sure that it's going to resolve itself. you don't, you know, if you're on a icy road at night in the mountains, you don't know if you're gonna, you can't even turn the car around. You don't know if you're gonna skid off the road. There are so many things about uncertainty that are frightening, but what it says right here is that we have a certainty, we have security in spirit and in eternity, security in the unqualified trust of the creature's son in the divine compassion and infinite love of the universal Father. So we have that right now, more than any people have ever had it, or you know, there have been very devout and religious people with great faith before this time too, but we have it, and we have this book to reassure us. So no matter what situation we're in or how scared we are, we know that things work out in the end. We know there's going to be a good ending.
Yeah, of course. 对，就是当然那个我们就是经常会遇到一些我们觉得恐惧的事物，觉得很难去你看到说他会自己会就是情况会得到一个缓解。比如说我晚上开非常的路上有冰的这个路，然后呢又没有办法往回转，也不知道怎么样会不会掉下去。去遇到这样的一些不确定性，但是呢，我们现在知道这灵里知道我们是安全的。我们虽然在这之前也有很多的非常的虔诚的宗教信仰的人，但是就是说我们也比他们更有坚信，就是说不管情况好像多么吓人，我们知道我们结果总是安全的，是好的。
So when we stumble and fall, we have to let our angels and our thought adjuster and the spirit of truth lift us up, and they will lift us up every time. When we get lost, they'll send a whole rescue crew out to help us. When we're confused, we'll get the answers will come to us. So we just have to keep having faith that everything's just perfect. Everything's going to work out perfectly. Even when it seems like it's not, we are on the right path to God. We're on the path to God.
Yes. 对，那么那句话叫受到之子对万有之父的神性慈悲、无限慈爱的无条件信任所带来的安全感啊。那么就是说像调整者啊、天使啊，他们总是会把我们托举起来。我们就是走失了，那么就是有整个的一个拯救的团队来帮助我们。我们困惑的时候呢，对，就是这个团队帮助我们找回这个信心。就是什么情况都会很完美的那个就走出来。甚至我们在好像认为自己没有走在正确的路上，那么也会到时候会被找回来的。
And last thing I'll say on this paragraph is, if everything was completely secure, if we knew what was going to happen, if we knew how every situation was going to unfold, if there was no chance of making a mistake and falling and getting lost, it wouldn't be as exciting. It wouldn't be as interesting. It would actually be pretty boring.
对，那么下话说呢，就是如果是我们没有机会犯错误，没有机会跌倒再爬起来，就是没有这样一个走失了又被找回来的这种经历，那么这个旅程就有点太过于枯燥了。
Some people, I've heard a few people say God never gives you more than you can handle. And I think that's true.
那么多次听到这句话，神给你的无非是你所能承受的，所能处理的。那么我认为这句话说的是对的。
So when times are tough and when you're struggling and when you're immersed in uncertainty, there's 3 words you can always say: bring it on.
嗯哼，
Bring it on, bring it on. I
对，
can handle it. Give me
当
all you got. Just throw it at me.
对，当情形比较严峻哈，你在不确定当中，沉浸在不确定当中挣扎的时候，那么你唯一要说的就是来吧，再来一些，再来的让暴风雨来的更猛烈吧。
Let's do this.
哎，让我们来解决它。
Party time.
现在是这个欢乐时间。
I'm all over this.
我已经准备好了。
Give it to me.
对，相当于就是越在困难不确定的时候，就是越要勇敢的这个勇气越重要。
I forget to do that. And I start wallowing in my uncertainty, but I'll tell you, when you do that, it really helps.
对，当你就要被这个不确定性淹没的时候呢，这样做呢就非常的有帮助，帮你把勇气找回来，把信心找回来。
So next paragraph. May I, okay, this is all right, well, this is the solitary messenger is speaking here when he says that's the author of this paper. So he says, may I admonish you to I just want to say before I read this, it's very rare when the authors talk in the first person, when they say I and you. That's very, very rare. So whenever that happens, it's a very special section of the book, because you're really connecting to the author as a one-on-one, person to person. I really love it.
对，这个书很少有地方有用第一人称来表述，就是作者跳出来直接跟读者交流呢。像这个地方第2段，它就是单独使者出来跟这个读者直接的交流，就是直接跟这个读者，我们就是读的人可以直接跟这个作者就是产生这样一种连接。
This book was written by a commission formed by the ancients of days, the actual rulers of our super universe, or Vantan. But even though the book was written by commission and they coordinated and collaborated together, each paper was written by an individual author. And it says at the end of each paper, and in the contents also. So when you're reading the book, know that an individual author, not a committee, wrote each paper, and they have different feels. The different authors have different styles and different feels. You can feel a little bit of a difference in how they write.
这个整个月染下之书是有一个委员会哈，是我完成这个超级宇宙的一个委员会组成的，那个成员写作的，他们就是要协作，但是每一篇文章都是就是相当于有个人去完成的，每一个作者他有他的领域和这个写作的风格。
So some of the papers are written by mighty messengers who were one-time mortal beings. So they understand exactly what it's like to be us. And some papers were written by the Jesus papers, for example, were written by midwayers. And the secondary midwayers especially are very much like, are very close to us on the chain of spirit evolution. They're closer to us than angels. So they also understand, and they've been with us on this planet for, you know, hundreds of thousands of years. So they also understand how we think. But this paper was written by a solitary messenger, one of the highest and most spiritual beings of the entire group of authors who wrote this book. They're very, very, I would say, unlike mortal beings. They're so far removed from us on the spiritual realm, and yet, you know, and yet I feel a great love for solitary messengers. So I think that we have to remember they really truly have never been anything like a mortal, the author of this paper.
对，那个有一些作者呢，像那个强大使者，他们以前呢都是凡人哈，那个他也就是被分配写作一些的篇章。那个像写第4部分呢，那个作者呢就是一个中道者，是属于2类中道者。那么2类中道者跟我们人类凡人就是比较近的，在进化链上面跟我们比较近的。你可能在地球上呢就能待100年上千年的这个中道者。那么单独使者呢，这个作者当中这个单独使者呢，他是比较很高的这么一个很高维的存有，非常的灵性的存有，在这个作者当中，跟那个凡人就非常的遥远哈，相当于从经验上面跟我们离得非常遥远。但是我读他的这一段的时候，感觉到就是他的非常的大爱啊。
But the reason, hi Eva, Eva's here. But the reason that a solitary messenger is writing these papers on the thought adjusters is because of all the beings, 25 beings or so involved in writing this book, the papers of this book. They probably have the best understanding and the most insight into thought adjusters. They're the closest thing to thought adjusters, who are also extremely high spiritual beings, with the highest God, because they're God. That's why the solitary messenger was chosen to write these papers, because they have the best understanding of thought adjusters.
对，有25个存有，灵界的存有写这些的文章。那么这个关于思想者的篇章是由这个单独使者来完成的，可能就是因为单独使者他是比较高位阶的属灵存有，那么他对思想调整者就是会有最好的这个理解力、洞察力。
So we're reading the second paragraph in section 7.
那么对，读这个第7部分的第二段。
May I admonish you to heed the distant echo of the adjuster's faithful call to your soul? The indwelling adjuster cannot stop or even materially alter your career struggle of time. The adjuster cannot lessen the hardships of life as you journey on through this world of toil. The divine indweller can only patiently forbear while you fight the battle of life and worry, and the battle of life as it is lived on your planet. But you could, if you only would, as you work and worry, as you fight and toil, permit the valiant adjuster to fight with you and for you. You could be so comforted and inspired, so enthralled and intrigued, if you would only allow the adjuster constantly to bring forth the pictures of the real motive, the final aim, the eternal purpose of all this difficult uphill struggle with the commonplace problems of your present material world.
省略掉。
我能，OK，我能劝诫你们留意调整者对你灵魂的忠实召唤的遥远回声吗？内住的调整者无法阻止，甚至无法实质性改变你在时间的生涯中挣扎。当你在这个劳碌的世界不断前行，调整者无法减轻你生活的艰辛。当你在自己生活的星球与生命抗争时，神性内住者只能耐心的忍耐。但当你工作、担忧、战斗和劳碌时，只要愿意，你就可以让坚定的调整者与你并肩战斗，且为你而战。只要你愿意让调整者不断地呈现出这重重困难、艰苦斗争，以及你当前物质世界常见问题这一切的真正动机、最终目标和永恒目的的画面，你就会得到如此的安慰、鼓舞，如此的着迷和好奇。OK，
Okay, thanks. So I love this paragraph for a couple reasons. The solitary messenger is telling us basically this is saying, why do you make things so difficult for yourself? You could make it so much easier if you would only let your thought adjuster guide you. Okay, that's one thing he's saying.
这个他只是觉得这个为什么喜欢这些段落哈，就是这个单独使者呢，他就直接跟我们说啊，你为什么让自己的生活那么变得那么困难？你只要稍稍就是说让你的思想调整者来参与帮你，那么就不会这么难。
But when you think of this solitary messenger as this high, divine, spiritual being, I think he's also saying, why? Why don't you let your thought adjuster guide? Like really genuinely asking, like, I don't get it. You've got God inside you. Why don't you let him help you? Like really wondering why, because he can't understand why an animal being with God inside them wouldn't let God guide them. It must be impossible for him to understand why we don't let our thought adjusters guide us more.
因为这个
So
单独
this,
使者
yeah.
是一个非常这个神圣的存有嘛，他就是很真诚的在这儿质问我们哈，我们有这个神在里边，为什么不求神的帮助？但他不能理解我们这个动物性的这个起源的这个造物，为什么不求助于内在的神？
He's saying, you could be so comforted and inspired, so enthralled and intrigued if you would only allow the adjuster constantly to bring forth pictures of the real motive, the final aim, the eternal purpose of all this difficult uphill struggle with commonplace problems of your present material world. So he's saying, that's the last sentence. He's saying, it's right there. Your adjuster doesn't just want to give you pictures of what's really happening and the real purpose and the real outcome and the real benefit to all these struggles. He wants to do it constantly, 24/7. He'll give you all you want. It's like it's there for the taking. It's there for the taking. That's That's an English expression. Do you know that one? It's there for the taking.
嗯哼。
Yeah.
那么就是说，我们的思想调整者呢，就最后一句哈，只要我们愿意呢，这调整者会不断的就向我们呈现啊，展现这个困难啊、艰苦斗争啊、当前物质世界这个问题，一切背后的这个真正的动机啊、最终目的啊、永恒目的的画面。对，它实际上24小时7天，它每时每刻都想给我们展现。并我们得到这样的画面，就会得到安慰啊、鼓舞啊，就是相当于那个东西，它是唾手可得的这么一个帮助，我们却常常没有去拿这个帮助。
So they're saying, so he's saying that the solitary, our solitary messenger friend is saying that your thought adjuster can't stop or even change, materially alter, even change your struggle. They can't lessen the hardships of life. Your thought adjuster can't lessen the hardships of life. It can't make things smooth, make things easy for you, nor would they if they could. They're not supposed to be smooth and easy. That doesn't help us grow as people. So they can't do that. They can't make it easy. They can't make your problems go away. But they can fight with you and for you if you will permit them.
对，就是相当于像调整者，他不会帮助你改变这种挣扎的这个情况，那不能够好像就是那个帮你减轻这个考验，但就是这个旅程，那个本来就不应该是太容易的，他也不会让那个问题就消失，但是呢，他可以跟你一起和为你就是一起奋斗。一起努力。
So when you're facing a big challenge, a big struggle, a big strong opponent, you don't have to do it alone. You can't, if you want, it's your choice. You can say, hey, God, come join me. Help me in this fight. And God, your thought adjuster, will fight with you and for you. So those are two different things. One, with you. He will get on your team and fight right next to you, hold your hand, fight with you. Two, he will fight for you. So God has all kinds of powers to affect things, to affect outcomes, to make all kinds of things happen. He can influence your life in a big way, but not without your permission. So he'll do two things. He'll fight with you and he'll fight for you. Now imagine you're in a battle and you're fighting a very strong opponent. Well, now you've got God on your team. Guess what? No one is stronger than you now. You have got God fighting with you and for you. You can't lose. It's not possible to lose.
对，对，就比如说你遇到很大的挑战呢，就是有很强的对手了，那就是你可以呼求说让神来加入你的团队，来跟我一起作战。那么他加入你的团队呢，他的确就是可以握着你的手跟你一起作战。另外一方面呢，他也可以为你作战，就是他可以调动一些的那个情景的发生，那么来影响这个战斗的结局。那么如果在这样一个激战当中，你把神弄到你的一边，也就不管有面对多么强大的敌人，你都不会失败的。
So he starts off, so polite. He's saying, this very, very high being, a solitary messenger, saying, may I admonish you to heed the distant echo of the adjuster's faithful call to your soul. Like he's not saying, I admonish you. I'm writing this book. This is the truth. And I'm telling you, you should do this. He has every right to admonish us, but he's being very polite about it. He's saying, may I admonish you? Do you mind if I scold you a little bit here?
对，他是很婉转的。那么这第一句话说：“我可以劝诫你哈，留意调整者对灵魂的忠实召唤的遥远回声嘛。”他当然，他那个刚为的存有，他是有资格来训诫我们，但是他就是非常的礼貌的，就是很委婉的提出这样的劝诫。
And since he's speaking so directly to us in this, you know, this is one of the few times where the author is speaking there are a few other times, but this is one of them. The few times where the author is speaking directly and saying, I, you. And since he's asking us a question, I think we should answer directly to, and I will say for our Mary Agandanta group, yes, you may admonish us, and thank you for admonishing us, because we can't be reminded enough. Yes, you're right. We don't listen to our thought adjuster's call to our souls. We forget all the time. It's very hard for us. So admonish us. Yes, keep admonishing us all you want. Never stop. Thank you.
Yes，对，那个当然，在这本书当中很少有地方作者哈直接出来说你呀我呀这样的给予这样的劝诫。那么作为我们的坚定不移者，那我们就是应该这样回应他。是的，你那个我们愿意接受这样的提醒，你就尽管提醒我们吧，不要停止。
Our fears and our doubts are very, very powerful, and they are always getting in the way of our relationship with God.
我们的恐惧啊、担忧啊、那个怀疑啊，总是非常的有全能，总是挡在我们和神之间。
There may be a few people who have completely overcome them, but I think that even the most godly, faithful people struggle a little bit with faith, with fear and doubt, a little bit. And those are the most godly people.
对，很少有人能够克服这种恐惧、怀疑。那么，即使最虔诚的人，对，可能会有一些，但是会非常少的人才能够克服这个恐惧和担忧和怀疑。
So fear and doubt is like a beast. But you'll never tame it. You'll never beat it. You can't chain it up. The only way to get beyond, to pass over, to get around your fear and doubt and just listen to God and the angels is to listen to God and the angels. Because once you do, you just have to change the channel. Once you're listening to God and the angels, there's no room for fear and doubt. They pale, they're weak. It's spirit trumps love. God is so much more powerful than any fears and doubts you could ever have.
对，那个恐惧怀疑啊，就像野兽一样，就是没有办法去驯服它。你必须要超越它，能够聆听神和天使的声音，要转换那个频道啊，然后那个力量就会来了。
So that's to repeat what I just said, you don't have to fight your fear and doubt. You don't have to get rid of your fear and doubt. Just listen to God, and that's a much stronger, more powerful frequency.
你不是自己单独去跟那恐惧啊、怀疑来作战，或者试图把它驱除。 你就是那个转频道倾听那个倾听神的声音呢，这个高的频率，那么就会这个使
So
你
then, I'm sorry.
嗯
So it says, you could be so comforted and inspired, so enthralled and intrigued. I read this already. If you would only allow the adjuster constantly to bring forth pictures of the real motive, the final aim, the eternal purpose of all this difficult uphill struggle with the commonplace problems of your year. So that's like the what if game. He's saying here that the adjuster can give you the big picture. When you're struggling in the mud and muck and mire of the material world, your adjuster can show you the real motive, the final aim, the eternal purpose of this difficult struggle. So everything you're going through, even if it's a petty little thing, how you handle it is so important, because you can learn and grow and become a better person from every struggle you face, every challenge. It will make you what your adjuster is always there to show you, like, yes, you're going through this little annoying thing now. It's going to make it so much easier for you to deal with the challenges to come. We're turning you into a warrior. This is training. You're becoming foolproof. You're becoming bulletproof. We're turning you into someone who can handle anything that comes your way. So just bear with it. I'll help you through it. But there's a reason you're going through this. It's going to make sense in the long run.
Yeah. 对，这个就是类似于那个 play 那个玩那个 what if game，就是这个神的智慧，它会给你更大的图画面。那个当你经历这个物质世界的挑战的时候，它会让你看到这一切背后真正的动机啊，最终的目标啦，能达成的目标啊，永恒的目的啊，这些东西。这样的话呢，你就是你让你看到你学习就是掌控这样的局面，实际上你就是在学习成长，就是说面对的处理之小的挑战，然后就有能力处理更大的挑战呢。那个成长为真正的勇士，所以就成为这个子弹打不透的能够处理掌握其他更困难的情景这个就是他给你一个理由，可以这样。
And just to remind people, the what if game is the game I made up that's very helpful in difficult times. And you just ask yourself, what if? So if you're going through something difficult, you say, what if I was going through this terrible thing now, and it was going to lead me to something better than I had before? What if a year from now I was going to be glad this happened to me? What if I'm having a difficult time now, but this is actually going to help someone else? It's going to help someone else grow. Or what if this is preparing me for a bigger problem that's going to come? There's so many answers once you start asking what if, and they all make you feel better.
Yeah. 对，那个提到那 What If 这个游戏呢，就是实际上就是一种转换思维的一个游戏。它比如说，就是说我现在的困难呢，就相当于就是会导向一个更好的明天。然后呢，我1年之后呢，有可能很高兴现在这种情形发生。那么然后呢，我现在遇到的困难有可能就是有利于帮助更多的人去相当于克服这样的困难吧。然后呢，我现在如果能够经历这样的挑战，可以 使我准备好面临更重大的挑战。那么你这样的转换思维的这个就会感觉到好一些。
As soon as you play the what if game, you're basically rising above your problem to look at it through different eyes. When you do that, you're opening the door to your thought adjuster. You're allowing your adjuster to bring forth the pictures of the real motive, the final aim, and the eternal purpose of all this difficult uphill struggle. So the what if game actually allows your thought adjuster to help you.
对，就是你做这样的 What if 这个游戏呢，实际上你只要做，你就会相当于就是升到你的问题之上了，你就是相当于给像调整者一个机会，让他能够把这个经历这些重重困难的艰苦斗争的这一切的真正的动机、最终目标、永恒目的向你显现，就给像调整者这样的机会。
Okay, next paragraph.
那下一个。
Why do you not aid the adjuster in the task of showing you the spiritual counterpart of all these strenuous material efforts? Why do you not allow the adjuster to strengthen you with the spiritual truths of cosmic power while you wrestle with the temporal difficulties of creature existence? Why do you not encourage the heavenly helper to cheer you with the clear vision of the eternal outlook of universal life as you gaze in perplexity at the problems of the passing hour? Why do you refuse to be enlightened and inspired by the universe viewpoint while you toil amidst the handicaps of time and flounder in the maze of uncertainties which beset your mortal life journey? Why not allow the adjuster to spiritualize your thinking, even though your feet must tread the material paths of earthly endeavor?
你为什么不帮着调整者向你展示所有这些艰苦的物质努力的灵性对应物呢？在你全力应对受造物存在的世俗困难时，为什么不让调整者用宇宙力量的灵性真理加持你呢？当你困惑地注视着瞬息万变的问题时，为什么不鼓励上天的帮手，用永恒的宇宙人生观的清晰视野来鼓舞你呢？当你在时间的屏障中跋涉，在困扰你人生旅程的不确定性迷宫中挣扎时，为什么拒绝宇宙视角的启示和启迪呢？为什么不让调整者灵化你的思想，即便你的双脚必须努力地踏上尘世的物质之路 ？Okay, Eddie.
Yes, thanks. So that's just what we were just talking about. But here the solitary messenger saying, why? I think I may be wrong, but I think the solitary messenger is really wondering why. Why we have God on our team trying to help us and we're not letting him. Why don't you just make your life easier?
就是这个单独使者呢，他就是一连串的为什么，他就不能理解我们有神在我们的团队当中，为什么不让他帮忙呢？
So there he is making it so clear that the adjuster wants to help us and can help us and will help us. He will make our life easier. He will lighten our burden if we just work with him. We have to work as a partnership. He can't just impose. He can't just say, hey, don't worry, I'm going to make everything easier for you. Doesn't work that way. We have to say, adjuster, make everything easier for me. Help me, teach me, guide me, be on my team. Let's work together. We have to do that to make it happen.
对，那个这里这个单独使者就告诉我们，像调整者他是可以也愿意让我们就是说这个负担轻一些，让我们这个度过这困难旅程的时候容易一些。只要我们愿意跟他一起工作，那么这个伙伴关系，对，只要我们请求他来帮助我们啊，教导我们啊，指导我们。
Let's say you're teaching a child how to tie their shoes. It's not that hard. You can teach a child how to tie their shoes, but you can't if they're not listening to you. You can't teach them how to tie their shoes if they're focused on something else. They have to want you to teach them, and they have to want to learn.
对，就是比如说我们想教孩子啊怎么系鞋带儿，然后呢，如果是他不听你的，那么不集中在这个任务上，你是很难教他的。对，他必须想要学习，想要听你的，然后你才能教他。
Our adjusters are wanting to teach us how to tie our shoes. They don't want to see us falling over our laces, tripping and falling every single day over these laces when all we have to do is tie our shoes. But we're not asking them to help us. We're not listening to them. They want to teach us. They want to guide us.
对，我们的小调整者想教我们怎么样来系鞋带儿，他是不愿意看到我们每天都被这鞋带儿绊倒的。对，我们只是需要做的就是停下来，然后听他那个怎么教我们。
That's what this paragraph is saying again and again and again. It's saying, why do you refuse to be enlightened and inspired by the universe viewpoint while you toil amidst the handicaps of time and flounder in the maze of uncertainties which beset your life journey? So they're not saying, why aren't you listening? They're saying you're refusing to listen. It's worse than not listening. You're refusing to listen. So you're trying to teach it. You want to teach your child to tie their shoes. It's not just that the child is distracted and watching the kitten and the dog and not paying attention. It's the child is saying, no, I don't want you to teach me. That's what this solitary messenger is telling us. We're refusing to let God help us.
我们不光是就是说一般的被分神了，说啊，我们去看猫和狗去啦，然后呢没注意听，而是这段就告诉我们，我们是主动的拒绝。我们经常说我不想听你讲话，就是主动的拒绝那个不听思想调整者的话。
It's like you feel the frustration of the solitary messenger. He's saying, God's just sitting there. His whole job is to help you. He's just sitting there. He's dedicated to you, and you're not letting him do his job. You've been given the greatest gift anyone in the entire universe has been given. God has given a piece of himself to be with you, to be part of you, and you're not listening to him.
Yeah，就是这个地方，这个丹路使者非常的那个烦恼。你看看，就是你这个这样调整神就坐在那里啊，他就是分派给你的，专门就是上天给你的最伟大的礼物，他把自己的一部分分派给你啊，在你住到你的里面，但是呢，你根本就不用它。
And I think this solitary messenger is truly confused, is baffled, is saying, how could you not listen? It's like a homeless man has a pot of gold right next to him and he refuses to open the pot and take the gold and go live a life. He stays homeless and he keeps begging for money from everyone who walks by, and he has a pot of gold right next to him.
嗯。对，这个像调整者就不，就这个单独使者就非常的困惑哈，你怎么能这样子，就是好像那个糊涂，对吧？你这个坐在一个金罐儿上了，但是呢，却觉得自己是无家可归者，然后跟行人要钱。对你根本就不去打开那罐金子。
It's you really can feel his how he's baffled. He cannot even fathom how we could not listen to our own thought adjusters. You can see that in this paragraph. It's like he's saying he's saying the same thing over and over again in every sentence in this paragraph. He's saying, what will it take for me to get through to you? I'm telling you, if you listen to me right now, your whole life will be easier. Why don't you listen?
对，他很急迫的，就是那个他就是不能够，测量，就是如果你允许神能够就是打向你哈，你如果听他，那么你就是生活会有很大的一个转机。
And the last sentence, why not allow the adjuster to spiritualize your thinking, even though your feet must tread the material parts of earthly endeavor? And there is the key to life, the secret of the mystery of life. It's your thinking. Doesn't matter what you go through, doesn't matter where you are. All that matters is your thinking, is how you think about things. And God is there to spiritualize your thinking. When your thinking is spiritualized, no physical material things can hurt you.
对，这个最后一句呢是最精华的根本呢，就是为什么不让调整者灵化你的思想，即便你的双脚必须努力踏上尘世的物质之路。对，就不管你去哪里啊，你做什么，就是你如果是允许调整者灵化你的思想，那么没有物质界的事物能够伤害你。
I've said before in these sessions that I've heard this expression of somewhere I heard it's easier, maybe in this book actually, I don't know, but it's easier to rule the world than to rule your own thoughts.
对，那我不知道是这本书还是哪儿，反正有一句话是说，就是统治世界都比控制你的思想要容易。
But we're being told again and again right here, we have God in our minds and he will help us to rule our thoughts. We can just listen to him and then our thoughts are under control.
对，我们一遍一遍的被告诉，就是有神在我们的心智当中，那么可以 来控制我们的思想。
The secret to ruling an inferior mind, a confused mind, a human mind, is to listen to a divine mind.
Yeah， 如果就是想要控制那个凡人心智，实际上就是要有这个神圣的头脑。
And we have a divine mind talking to us all the time. We just have to listen. That's what they're telling us.
我们有那个神圣的头脑那一部分，神圣的心智，我们只是需要来听他的。
Okay, the higher human races of Urantia are completely admixed. They are a blend of many races and stocks of different origin. This composite nature renders it exceedingly difficult for the monitors to work efficiently during life and adds definitely to the problems of both the adjuster and the guardian seraphim after death. Not long since, I was present on Salvington and heard a guardian of destiny present a formal statement in extenuation of the difficulties of ministering to her mortal subject. The seraphim said, you can read that, Shenley.
Okay. 预言下较高的人类种族是复杂混合的，它们是许多不同起源的种族和血统的混合。这种混合性质使得告诫者在生命期间高效的工作变得极为困难，也明显增加了调整者和守护炽天使在凡人对象死后的问题。不久前，我在萨文顿，并听到一个命运守护者发表的正式说明，为他对凡人主体的侍奉中的困难争辩。这个炽天使说 ：“OK, Eddie。”
So, I don't think the Urantia book ever really explains why the mixed races are so much harder for our thought adjusters, the monitors, and our guardian angels to work with. I'm not sure it explains it, so we can take a guess.
对这一段的第3段啊，第4段第一句吧，就是他就说那个两下之书没有解释，没有哪个地方解释为什么这个人种的复杂混合会使思想调整者啊、天使啊，这个他们的工作变得困难。
So this is my guess, and then maybe you have some ideas too. My guess is that that all the races are different. They have different tendencies and different characteristics.
这是我的猜测哈。比较老的种族呢，他们就是有不同的特征。
So if you're a pure race, pure yellow, pure blue, pure red, the adjuster can probably adjust his methods and style and the guardian angels to the way you think, the way a way that will be easiest for you to understand. They can basically speak your language.
对，那么你是纯种的那个黄种啊、蓝种啊，或者是红种人，那么这个像调整者或者天使，他可以就是调整他的方法呢，是用你能够那个接收到的方式啊、思想啊，去跟你交流。 你能更容易懂的方式跟你交流。
So I'm just guessing. I'm just taking a stab at this. I'm just presenting a hypothesis.
我只是猜测，我这么想的，是一个假说。
So if that's true, then if you were of mixed races, let's say I have a little yellow, a little blue, a little red, a little green, a little orange, a little black, then I may have all kinds of tendencies, all kinds of dispositions, and some of them may be even in conflict with the others.
如果我是混合的种族哈，一点黄，一点蓝，一点红，一点绿，一点橙色，一点黑色，也是这种，我会有各种的不同的倾向，那么有一些倾向有可能甚至是互相矛盾的。
So it's much harder for our thought adjuster and our guardian angels to speak a language that we understand because we're speaking a mixture of 10 different languages.
对，那么就是给这个像调整者天使造成一些的困难，很难跟我们交流，因为对我们混合了那么多种不同的这种交流方式或者是倾向。
That's the only way I can make sense of why it would be so much more difficult to work with a person of mixed races like most of us here on Urantia.
对，这是我就是假设是就是这可能就是这样去解释为什么混合种族这么难跟他们交流。就是像勇者跟天使这么难跟混合类的种族交流。
If you had 3 children, one was very, very logical, one was very, very emotional, and one was very spiritual, you would teach each child in a different way. You would appeal to the emotions of the emotional one, the logic of the intellectual one, and you would appeal to the philosophical and cosmological truths of the spiritual one. So it would make it easier you would adjust your teaching style to each child's temperament. But that's what they're saying. But they're saying that they're having to teach a child that's intellectual 1 minute, emotional the next, a little spiritual here, a little physical. 1 minute they worship God, 1 minute they worship the material things. They're all over the place. We're such mixtures, so it's like if you have a dog that's a mutt, a mixture of breeds, it's much harder to explain their characteristics than a dog who's a purebred. You know how they're going to behave, a purebred dog. You don't know so much how a mutt's going to behave.
就比如说你有3个孩子，有一个比较逻辑脑的，一个比较的那个情绪化的，另外一个比较属灵的，灵性比较高的。那么你可以用不同的教育方法哈，调整自己的教育方法去适应不同的孩子，那个逻辑脑的更智性的方法去教导比较情绪化的用比较感性的方式去教导。那么对那个灵性比较高的呢，就是用一些比较哲理性的呀，这些东西去教导，那根据他们的禀赋来调节这个教导的方式。那么如果我们又对，同时又就是敬拜神，转而又敬拜物质，那么是一个混合的，那么也就是对，很难给他们一个适合的教导方式，就是比如说像那个狗啊，宠物它就是每一种那个纯种，它就是秉性性格都很确定，但是如果他们是一个混种的，就有时候就不太确定他们的秉性。
So they're not saying that it's wrong to be mixed or it's bad to be mixed. The Urantia book says in another part that eventually on a world like ours, all the races mixed, and you end up with one race that's a mixture of all the races. So what's happening is not bad. It's the way it's supposed to happen. They're just saying we're at a particularly difficult part of our evolution for them to do their jobs to communicate with us.
对，他这个书也不是说就是混合就是不好，因为最终来讲，地球上所有的种族都会混合成为一个种族啊。他只是这个地方强调，由于这种混合种族的性质，那么对他们的工作来说，像调整者啊、天使啊，对他们的工作，帮助我们进化这份工作来说是比较有挑战性的。
First, we've been talking about how difficult it is for us humans to, and this has been me talking, not so much the book, but I've been talking about how difficult it is with our doubts and our fears and our anxiety, that it, our natural inbred fears that go back through evolution, that it's so hard for us to put all that aside and listen to our thought adjuster and let our angels guide us. So that's what we've been talking about up until now. But now the focus is on how difficult it is for them to teach us.
对。就是我在讲话，那么就是我们由于我们内里的怀疑啊、恐惧啊、焦虑啊，我们就是有一个天生的这种恐惧，他们没有办法，就是扔到外边，然后来听神的或者是天使的，让他们有效的指导我们。这一段实际上讲的就是那个神和天使，他们也由此，他们也很难去教导我们他那方面的困难。
This is a very interesting time to be alive because we have just reached the peak of the material age, as the book tells us. As the book was being written, we had reached the peak of the material age, and that was 70 years ago. And nothing stays the same. Everything changes all the time. That means if we're not becoming more material, we're becoming less material. So that means we are entering a more spiritual age right now.
对，那个这个以前我们学过那个运输传导的时候，那么我们正进入这个物质化时代的巅峰，那么这是70年前。那么现在来讲，我们either变得更比较少物质化，或者变得更灵性化了。
I think this is going to be a very spiritual age, and not in a heavy authoritarian way that when powerful religious groups ruled the world. Not in that way, in a more individual, liberated, spiritual way where more people have personal relationships with God and know that and are aware of that and let that lead them in their lives.
对，不是那种方式，就是好像一些的有权威的那个宗教来统治世界，而是个人层面的一种觉醒，更多的与神建立个人的关系，让神来指导他们的生活。
So this is a very, very exciting time to be alive. We have we have the life of Jesus to study. We have the Urantia book. We're the first generation to really be able to study this book. It may be the second. I'm kind of like the first. You're kind of like the second. So, but we have we've already peaked at the material age. It's behind us. We're entering a new age. It's a very exciting time to be alive.
对，那么我们生活的这个年代还是非常激动人心的。那么就月下之书来说，我算是第一代读这本书的人，你们算是第二代。那么这样一个，就是正好就是在一个从物质主义巅峰，然后进到这个比较重视属灵的这个时代，这样一个过渡期。
We are standing here witnessing one of the most important eras that will ever take place on our planet.
我们正在目睹，就是这个行星上正在发生的一个巨大的变化。
And we're watching it happen. We're watching the most evil and powerful and corrupt forces sort of start to lose their momentum. And we're watching the most spiritual, beautiful, God influence slowly start to gain momentum.
Yeah， 我们就是在观察哈，这个过度的发生，那些的腐朽的、黑暗的、腐败的势力的，慢慢的失去他们的动力，然后呢，属灵的美丽的那种影响，慢慢的，那个就是加速来，就是更加强他们的动力。
And it's a very wild and chaotic and crazy time because the evil powers are holding on. They don't want to go away. They're going crazy. They're becoming more evil by the minute. They're obsessed with holding on to power. But they're having to let go a little bit more each day as the spiritual, good, loving influences come together and grow and nourish each other and say, hey, we don't have to listen to you guys anymore. We can have our own world. But it's a very chaotic, bizarre, absolutely frightening sometimes world we're living in as we watch all this happen.
对，当然这个就是有混乱嘛，目前有一些的混乱，那么那些的疯狂的那个邪恶的势力，他们就是想抓住做最后的挣扎嘛，所以他们表现更多的邪恶，就是不想放权，不想放手，但是呢，就是属灵的好的富有爱的这个影响，慢慢的成长起来。对，他们就是宣告他们要建立他们自己的世界。
So we're on a rebel planet, a planet where our planetary prince rebelled, Adam and Eve defaulted, everything went wrong. It's a planet of chaos and confusion.
我们成长在一个比较有挑战的星球，那个首先星球王子他叛变，然后亚当夏娃也相当于也违约，那么就是整个是一个非常令人困惑的世界。
We live on one of the most confused, chaotic planets in all of the universe of Nebadon.
对，我们在整个的地方宇宙内巴顿地方宇宙来讲，我们是相对生活在一个比较令人困惑的，就是混乱的这么一个星球。
On top of that, if that weren't enough, we are in the very, very height, just passing it, the very peak of the most materialistic age this planet has ever seen and will ever see.
对，就是不光是这样，我们又刚刚的经过物质主义横行的最高峰的年代，刚刚经历。
And when I say materialist, I also mean secular, anti-God, the forces who reject God have been in control for a long time, and they have made matters much, much worse.
对，不光是物质主义，还有这世俗主义，反对神的，就是那种无神论的这个论调，就是拒绝神啊，这个物质就是让这个事情，让这个情形变得更糟。
We are seeing right now what happens when people who reject God control the planet. We are seeing how depraved and perverse and distorted it becomes.
对，我们就是看到那些的不相信神的人在控制这个星球，那么他们是怎么样剥夺这个星球，然后让很多事情变得扭曲。
On top of all this, these difficulties, they're telling us right here that we're very, very mixed races, and that makes it even more difficult.
除了这些的，已经有的困难，这一篇又告诉我们，我们这个混合的种族也加强了这个他们跟我们交流的困难。
So this messenger is saying to us, you think you have it hard? Try being your thought adjuster. Try being your guardian angels. Not so easy for them dealing with you either.
但是使者就告诉我们啊，你觉得你们是很困难的、很无力的，那么这里其实思想调整者啊、天使啊，他们也很困难啊。
You're not easy subjects.
你并不是一个很好对付的对象，很好应付的对象。
Of all the jobs, of all the thought adjusters in all the universes, being a thought adjuster to one of us is one of the more difficult assignments. That's what they're saying.
相当于就是告诉我们，作为思想调整者，这个工作是非常的具有挑战的，很难的这么一个很难，对，很有挑战性的这么一项工作，作为一个人的思想调整者。
So we have to, when we're trying to listen and be guided by our thought adjusters and our angels, we also have to have a little compassion for them, that their job is not so easy either.
对，就是我们要意识到，我们这个他们工作也不是那么容易的。
So
我们不要光关注在我们自己的困难，要想到另外一方，灵化我们那一方的他们的工作的困难，就是这个意思。
that somehow reminds me of this expression. You could say when someone's having difficulty dealing with you and thinks you are very hard to deal with, you can always say to them, you think I'm hard to deal with? Try being me.
对，你可以对另外一个说，哎呀，就是认为跟你打交道很难的人，你可以跟他说，你觉得你跟我打交道很难。 你要成为我，你看看难不难？那意思你如果是我，你看看我的生活难不难？Yeah.
So I'm saying right now to my thought adjuster and my angels, I know you have trouble dealing with me, but you can be glad you're not me.
对，我可以理直气壮的对我的思想调整者说你认为跟我打交道很难啊？你站在我的位置上，你成为我，你要是我，你来试试。
I have a hard time dealing with myself too.
我跟我自己打交道更难，也不容易。
We're all having trouble with me.
我们都跟我就那个自我嘛，我们都跟我打就很难。Yeah, we are the stubborn being. Yeah.
We know how you feel. We know how you feel dealing with us. We have to deal with ourselves.
我们理解你是怎么感觉的，对，然后我们跟我们自己打过交道。
Okay, so now this is really, really wonderful also, because in this is why this section 7 is one of my favorite sections in the book. Not only does the solitary messenger speak to us directly, one-on-one, now he's giving us a message from a seraphim, a guardian angel, who was reporting about her job being the guardian angel of a person. We rarely see anything like this in the book either. This is a direct message, not to us, but about us.
对。那么就是我们这一书当然很难看到单独使者哈，就是跟我们跟读者就是一对一的这样的一种对话。那么这个地方呢，单独使者转述了这个护卫天使，所谓天使，他作为一个他护卫天使这个工作，这个也是非常的罕见的就是护卫天使讲到我们。
We know a little about how these higher beings speak to us because they wrote this book to us. But this is one of the rare times where we can see how they speak to each other.
对，我们知道这些的灵界存有跟我们讲话，但是呢，我们现在也看到这些灵界存有之间，他们也要互相的对话，互相交流。
Now remember, he was just talking about how difficult it was, how especially difficult it was to work with us at this time because we're of such mixed races and stocks.
对，前面我们提到，就是混合种族是给他们的工作带来一些的困难程度。
So he says, not long ago, he was present on Salvington. Now that's the capital of our local universe, Nebadon, the universe where Jesus Christ Michael, is the sovereign. It's his universe. He's the ruler. He's the sovereign. He's the creator of this universe, Nebadon. It's our universe. There's like 10 million planets in this universe. And I think, and Salvington is the capital. That's where Jesus and the creative mother spirit, well, she's kind of everywhere, but I think she's mainly there with him. So that's the capital of our local universe.
Salvington 嘛，萨尔文顿是这个我们的地方宇宙内巴顿这个地方宇宙的首府。这个耶稣呢是耶稣基督，相当于是这个地方宇宙的统治者，也是造物是这个地方宇宙造物主，也是统治者。那么大概有1000万的星球在这个地方宇宙。就是他跟造物母灵一起造的这个地方宇宙。
So apparently, guardian angels at some point go to the Capitol at Salvington and make a statement about their work as guardian angels to mortals. And in this case, it doesn't say she was talking about a Urantia mortal, but most likely, because they use this as an example, she was talking about either a Urantia mortal or someone, a person from a similar mixed race and chaotic planet, most likely, because they use this as an example.
对，这个地方就是提到，就跟那个凡人工作的这个，所谓天使，那么他也不一定就是说是跟那个月下上面的凡人工作，也有可能跟那个类似的，就是混合种族的，就是那个造物，凡人去工作，在一个非常混乱的这么一个星球。
And this is what the seraphim said.
这个是以下的这段话呢，就是相当于炽天使说的。
Much of my difficulty was due to the unending conflict between the two natures of my subject, the urge of ambition opposed by animal indolence, the ideals of a superior people crossed by the instincts of an inferior race, the high purposes of a great mind antagonized by the urge of primitive inheritance, the long distance view of a far-seeing monitor. Wait, before I go any further, I just want to say I was saying before that I didn't think anywhere in the book they really explained the difficulty of working with someone of a mixed race, but I was wrong. They explain it. She's explaining it right here.
那么没继续读之前，他就说我以前说那个玉书没有解释为什么混合种族会造成交流的困难，他说这个也是不对的，他说这个地方其实就解释到了。
So a lot of her difficulty was because she was dealing with someone of a mixed race.
他的很多的困难源于就是跟那个混合种族的这个凡人工作。
Not just a mixed race, but mixed, like us, mixed races. Most of us are a combination of many different, many races, from Andon and Fanta to the Neanderthals to the orange and green people that aren't here. And, most of us have quite a mixture in us. And that's what she's talking. Her subject, that's the person she was guiding, also you can see comes from quite a mixture. And that makes it all the more difficult.
对，就是这个天使他所指导的守护的这个个体也是属于多种混合的种族。
So I'm going to start again. Much of my difficulty was due to the unending conflict between the two natures of my subject, the urge of ambition opposed by animal indolence, the ideals of a superior people crossed by the instincts of an inferior race, the high purposes of a great mind antagonized by the urge of a primitive inheritance, the long distance view of a far-seeing monitor counteracted by the nearsightedness of a creature of time, the progressive plans of an ascending being modified by the desires and longings of a material nature, the flashes of universe intelligence canceled by the chemical energy mandates of the evolving race, the urge of angels opposed by the emotions of an animal, the training of an intellect annulled by the tendencies of instinct, the experience of the individual opposed by the accumulated propensities of the race, the aims of the best overshadowed by the drift of the worst, the flight of genius neutralized by the gravity of mediocrity, the progress of the good retarded by the inertia of the bad, the art of the beautiful besmirched by the presence of evil, the buoyancy of health neutralized by the debility of disease, the fountain of faith polluted by the poisons of fear, the spring of joy embittered by the waters of sorrow, the gladness of anticipation disillusioned by the bitterness of realization, the joys of living ever threatened by the sorrows of death. Such a life on such a planet. And yet, because of the ever-present help and urge of the thought adjuster, this soul did achieve a fair degree of happiness and success, and has even now ascended to the judgment halls of Mansonia.
Oh my goodness.
I know, that's heavy duty. That I feel like they're describing my life.
Yeah, each one's life, each one's we resonate with this very much.
我的困难很大程度上是我的主体的两种属性之间无止境的冲突所致。雄性的冲动被动物性惰性对抗，优越民族的思想交织着劣等种族的本能，伟大心智的崇高目标被原始遗传的冲动所对抗，具有远见卓识的告诫者的长远计划被时间受造物的短视所抵制。扬升之子的进步计划被物质本性的欲望和渴望篡改，宇宙智慧的闪光被进化种族的化学能量指令所终止，天使的冲动被动物的情绪对抗，智力训练被本能倾向抵消，个体的经验被种族的累积习性阻抗。最好的目标被最坏的主旨所遮蔽，天才的飞跃被平庸的沉重所抵消，好的进步被坏的惰性所延迟，美的艺术被邪恶的存在所玷污，健康的活力被疾病的虚弱所抵消，信仰的源泉被恐惧的毒素所污染，喜悦之泉被悲伤之水冲淡。期待的喜悦因实现中的痛苦而幻灭，生命的欢乐永远受到死亡的悲伤的威胁。在这样的星球上的这样的生命，然而，在思想调整者无处不在的帮助和激励下，这个灵魂的确实现了相当程度的幸福和成功，甚至现在已经扬升到曼索尼亚的审判大厅。哇！
I know, that's really intense. But you can see that
This is our life.
What? Our life, yes, our
Yes,
life.
it's
Boy,
just our life.
does that they could be talking about me, I'm telling you.
Everyone.
就是大家
Over.
都对这段话非常的有感触，认为
有共鸣，
个人的写照就是非常有共鸣的。我们都在这两端之间晃来晃去，这就是我们整个的旅程的真实样貌。
What did you say, Ricky?
That's the real picture of everyone's journey.
Yes, and you can see here how this guardian angel has a lot of compassion. She's not blaming the person. She realizes how difficult it was for him also.
对，那个我们在这里也可以看到，这个护卫天使他也不是说责备这个主体，他非常的有那个 激情，也很同情这个他服务的对象。
And then at the last sentence, she says, and yet, because of the ever-present help and urge of the thought adjuster, this soul did achieve a fair degree of happiness and success, and has now moved on to the Morancha worlds. And this is the key. Without letting our thought adjusters help us, it's very difficult to be happy and achieve true success. But with their help, even with all of these conflicts and this duality, we can achieve a fair degree of happiness and success, and that is good enough.
对，最后这一句是关键，相当于就是没有思想调整者的帮助和激励，我们不可能幸福，达到真正的成功，然后克服这个二元性啊，然后这个顺利的养生。
Basically, the angel is saying, in a case like this, where it's so difficult, achieving a fair degree of happiness and success is success. That's something to be proud of. That's good enough.
对，就是天使说，虽然旅程非常的困难，我们达到了一定程度的成功，那么这已经是成功了，这已经很好了。
It's like saying, boy, that was a rough journey, but we made it.
对，这就相当于说，哎呀，这实在旅行充满了艰险，但是我们还是走过来了。
As long as you reach your destination and stay on the path, it doesn't matter if you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be happy all the time. You don't have to be a big success. It is successful just to survive under these circumstances, just to make it, just to have some happiness, just to have some joy, just to spread a little love. That is a good outcome.
Yeah，对，那么就是我们达到这个目的地哈，不是说我们就是很完美的，充分的那么幸福啊，或者很大的成功啊，我们只要能活下来，能够达到这个终点，就享受到一些的喜乐哈，分享了一些的爱，我们就成功了。
See, the point is, after all of this struggle, they made it to the judgment hall of Mansonia. They made it. That's the goal here. The goal of this life is to make it through, to get to the next life. It's not going to be easy for us. We're mixed races and stuck. We're confused. We're on a rebellious planet. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to make it. We're all going to make it. Not all of us, but I'm just saying me and Ricky and Shenley and Eva. And Eric's always with us.
对，就是说我们会经历很多的挣扎呀，但是我们就是只要能够，就是爬也爬到，我的话，审判大厅能够就是能够坚持到下一世哈，就不错了，能够达到终点就不错了。就是有这么多的困难，在这样一个困难的、黑暗的、背叛的星球上，我们又是一个混合的种族，能够那个达到续存啊，能够就相当的成功了。
The Mariagandanters are going to make it to the Morancha world, and we're going to keep going there. We're going to keep studying.
Yeah.
所以我们这些坚定不移者，就是到达宅下世界，还是要继续学习。
They may even have us, there are special sections for Agandanters, so they may even have a special section for Mariagandanters.
对，那天就是那个终局者嘛，有是从那个变化星球来的人，就是叫做坚定不移者嘛。对呀，那坚定不移者叫 Agendanter，那么 Mary Agendanter 是欢乐的坚定不移者。他说，哎，也许对那个欢乐的坚定不移者呢，又有一个小的团体。
I
We are
think
going to create a community of Marian Gandanta.
yes, we will. We are and we will. This is the beginning. It's a small group, but we're going to over time, over generations, we're going to grow and grow and grow until the whole earth is filled with Mary Agandanters.
Yeah.
就是我们有这么几个人啊，一个小组啊，然后就是一代一代的成长，把让全地球的人都变成了快乐的坚定不移者。
And that's because merriness, love and merriness are infectious. They're an infectious disease that nobody can resist.
对，因为快乐啊、爱呀、这些都是具有传染性的，就是具有这种扩散、扩大的能力。
Well, I should say no God-loving soul can resist.
对，没有热爱这个神的人会阻挡这种传染。
So this was a good that's one of my favorite parts. That's a one. I mean, we've got the solitary messenger scolding us, and then we've got an angel, a guardian angel explaining how difficult it is to teach us.
对，
to guide us.
这一部分呢，就是我们读到但读使者责备我们啊，然后呢，还有这个守卫天使呢，就是让我们展示他的工作有多么困难，或者是思想调整者的工作有多么困难。
So if you have a big oversized ego, I would advise you to read this section over and over again.
对，如果我们有一个很强大的小我，那么我们就是希望我们就是读了一遍又一遍，这个应该反复的去读。
Put you in your place.
Yeah，把它作为你的任务，多读几遍。
Yeah, we just repeat such a life on such a planet.
Oh yes. I'm so glad you said that because that is one of the funniest lines in the whole book. My sister and I both read the Urantia book since she was 17, I was 16. And the one thing we would say to each other through the years was we'd look at each other, we'd go, such a life on such a planet.
对，那就是他跟他的姐姐，一个16，一个17，开始读《玉苒侠之书》嘛，他们就是引用这里边最那个的一句话，就是哎呀，这样的生活在这样的星球。
Yeah, that's one of the best lines in the whole book, for sure, without question. It is hilarious. It's so great.
对，整本书他就说，哎呀，这句话非常的著名，非常的棒。
I might write a book called Such a Life on Such a Planet.
Yeah, you can. Eddie.
我写本书，名字就叫《这样的生活在这样的星球》。
Whenever things are difficult, we should say that to ourselves. Just such a life on such a planet. It'll be over before too long.
对，我
We'll
们
get through this. We'll get through this.
遇到挑战的时候，就是要对自己这样说：这样的生活在这样的星球，并且相信这些都会很快过去的。
It's just one life. It's just one life. Or just our first. It only gets better from here.
只是这一生就是我们的扬升旅程的第 第一个生命，对，很快就会过去的。
I mean, that is kind of wonderful. Imagine if it was different. Imagine if you started off with an easy, not easy, but like a more wonderful godly existence, and then you had to go through this life in your next life. That would be even worse. At least we can get it. We can have the worst first, the hardest, the craziest, and get it out of the way, get it under our belt. I mean, it's really the best possible scenario, because it's only going to make us stronger. I mean, such a life on such a planet is what makes us Agandanters. That's a privilege.
嗯哼，对。那么就是你想象一下，那个如果我们第一生啊比较的容易一些啊，那个，然后呢下一生你就变得难啊，更难啊，更差呀，更这样的话其实也不好，就是说我们先经历最困难的。实际上是更好的情形。先经历最困难，我们就相当于把最困难都已经走过来了，克服了，那么我们就变得非常的强壮。并且这个经历过最难的这个星球，使我们得到一个特别的身份，就是使我们成为快乐的坚定不移者。
Oh, we should mention that the reading is done for today. So, for I want to keep it at we read for about 2 hours, and I want to keep the reading at 2 hours. And I mean, we can keep talking, but I just want any listeners to know that the reading is done. We've finished the thought adjuster papers.
读书的部分现在就结束了第7，也就是说111篇到今天就结束了。可以继续聊天，但是读书的部分到这儿了。Yes.
Thank you very much, Heidi and Ricky.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you said such a life on such a planet, because when I was reading that, I was like, oh, here's that line. This is where that line, my favorite line is. No, I think it's my favorite line in the whole book. Such a life on such a planet.